All right, guys, we are back to talk about the 2023 Shimano Japan drops. Now, in my opinion, Jeff, this is probably one of the best Shimano drops that I've ever seen, but I love high-end reels. We are seeing a new BFS, a new normal bass, 2 new swim bait reels, all in the high end. This is pretty sick. So Jeff and I flew to Japan to go to the 2023 Osaka show to put our hands on the new Shimano drops so that we can bring you guys a first look sneak peek on what is coming down the pipe from Shimano Japan. So if you'd like to join us, come along, let's geek out on some reels. What's up, guys? We are in the Shimano booth. So some new important drops in Shimano. There's some new Conquest. There's a new Antares Monster Drive, there's a new Vanquish. So we're gonna start right here with the Calcutta Conquest Bait Finesse, so the BFS. So a totally redesigned. Now, in bait finesse fishing, the trend has been to go low pro, right? Steez Airs, Silverstream Customs, that kind of stuff. Conquest is still holding down the fort for the traditional round style reel. And this is really, in Japan, the bait finesse is really about fashion as much as it is function, right? So, this is kind of still the main option if you are looking for a round reel. They cast amazingly well. This one is so light. So even though it's still a full aluminum reel, it's so light. So I'm really excited to bring these to you guys, just give you a new option. There's a new cast system in it, just an overall just redesign, right? Just kind of a refresh. So that's the new one in the bait finesse. Let's go find the full-size one because they're doing now a Calcutta Conquest Monster Drive. I want to show that to you guys. All right, guys, so here's a first look kind of sneak peek at the brand new Calcutta Conquest Monster Drive. Now, Monster Drive is something that's been in Antares DC, right? Which you've been fishing for quite some time. It's basically just larger gearing, higher gear ratio, really designed, well, for monster fish, but swim bait anglers, glide bait anglers really attract to them because it just kind of seems to be the perfect fit, right? So, everybody knows that Calcutta Conquest is basically probably the single most bulletproof reel maybe ever made, right? It's forged from one-piece aluminum, the gearing's tight, there's really nothing that can go wrong with it. However, they've really only been in like low to mid gear ratio, so it's been a great option for like a soft bait guy, but there hasn't really been a high gear ratio really focused towards like a glide bait angler. So now you have that. So here's a look at the Monster Drive. These are going to be in a 7:5 to 1 gear ratio. Bigger gearing. They come standard with these larger grips as well. So, you don't necessarily have to go out and get a, additional handle or bigger grips. It's going to come with these larger grips designed for more, gliding type techniques. It is going to be in a 300 and a 400. This is the 400 size. I'm going to try to grab a 300. It's pretty crowded. Let me see if I can. Here's a look at the 300. So, you can, dude, that's so compact and nice. So depending on what you're throwing, obviously it's going to make a difference on the size. But these are expected to land in the USA this spring, kind of late spring, early summer. So really excited for you guys to get them. This is going to be a hit for Shimano, and I'm really stoked that they're taking that Monster Drive tech, bringing it into especially something like Calcutta Conquest. This is going to be super bulletproof for guys. So stay tuned. Spring-ish, you should see these coming. All right, Jeff, I almost feel like you should be filming this because I know this is your favorite. Is this your favorite reel?
I would say so.
Okay, so this is the all-new Antares Monster Drive DC, of course, right? Yeah. So honestly, I didn't even study to figure out what's different about this. I just knew it was there, and I knew I was going to buy it, right? So all I can really give you is first impressions of, touch, Very similar frame. It's lighter than previous versions by a pretty substantial amount. It's got that same kind of cool gripping handle on there. So, you know, I know you like your DRT handles and all your fancy stuff, but if you're a guy like me, I just want to buy it and use it, right? So it's got a little different braking system on it. What are you hoping this reel delivers that the other one was the other one lacking anything? The other one was so good. It was amazing. Yeah. So I really like this gear or this reel for smaller glides. So something like a blackjack, a casino, you know, a 4-ounce glide, a 2-ounce glide. Like on those lighter rods, this is just an amazing reel for it because it's a swim bait, it's a heavy duty reel, but it's really light. So it balances those lighter rods good. Now, one thing that's interesting about this is in previous versions, it's just been the XG, right? So an 8-to-1. They're gonna do a HG now in a 7-to-1 gear ratio as well. Now, supply is always a giant hassle with these. Never really ever always available. So we expect to see these land sometime probably late spring, early summer, but you know, you're going to want to be right on top of this because this is a really hard one to get large quantities of because it's in such demand, and you know, just a sick badass reel. So there you go. Look for summer-ish, let's just call it that. The brand new Antares Monster Drive DC. Are you stoked? Are you going to try to cut this one off and run? Okay, so coming soon. All right, guys, and then to wrap up some of the new drops from Shimano, here's a look at the new Shimano Vanquish. So this is kind of positioned just underneath Stella, kind of how Arity was to exist. This is kind of the same, just underneath Stella. This is basically the lightest components of any of the Shimano reels. I mean, it literally weighs nothing. This is a 3000. It weighs absolutely nothing. So they've lightened it somehow from the previous version. Now this is a Japan-only spinning reel that we bring over as we can, right? So we do our best to bring it over. Super popular here. If you're not really needing all that like torque power that Stella has, this tends to be maybe even a better option sometimes for freshwater bass fishing. Everything is just lighter. You know, that's really the only way to describe it. It's got kind of a very similar drag system, not quite as smooth as Stella, not quite as like, you know, built like a brick house, but just an overall kind of lighter version. So, you know, if you're a Shimano spinning reel fan, and you know, I've been pretty critical of Shimano spinning reels, right? And I've been feeling a lot of the different reels in here. You know, I'm not, this isn't, I mean, I'm doing the dial, right? But if you're just die-hard one lane, this is going to be exciting for you. It's available in a bunch of different sizes, 2500, 3000, obviously is going to be the most applicable in bass. But there you go. It's a sexy reel. It's got that kind of black and silver. So I know a lot of you guys are going to be stoked about it. There's the new Vanquish from Shimano. All right, guys, so there you go. There is our look at the Osaka show. Now, Jeff, I just realized I'm wearing my Daiwa jacket.
Yeah.
So, you know, I get a lot of grief around here for kind of hating on Shimano.
Yes.
Right? And it's kind of funny because I don't hate on Shimano. I love Shimano. I've literally used Shimano since I was a kid, and half of my reels are Shimano. The only time I talk shit about them is when their reels suck.
Yeah.
And I think I talk smack about them because I just expect Shimano to always be like here.
Yep.
Right? Because for decades, it was Shimano and then everybody else trying to catch up, right? So when they build something that that's either not right or has problems or just isn't what it should be, you know, look, they need some smack talk, right? It's not because I'm hating on it, it's because I want them to stay as elevated as possible.
Yep.
Now, we went to the show, we touched a bunch of new reels, right? Give me your initial thought on some of the new stuff coming from Shimano, just in general.
It seemed like very swim bait orientated. 2 new reels for swim bait guys.
2.
Which is their best ones too.
And I would say 2 specifically targeted at glide bait guys.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah,
right?
Wild.
Yeah, so Look, I was super excited at what I saw. Again, this is a first look video, right, where we're showing you guys kind of our hands-on, just kind of first look at the videos or at the reels. Until we actually use them and put them on the water, we don't really know if all the new stuff is really going to be applicable. Is it going to work? Is it going to make a big difference? So this is just kind of our chance to geek out on some specs, show you guys cosmetically what the new stuff is, give you our feedback on our thoughts so that you guys can kind of start just thinking about what may or may not be coming down the pipe. Now, it's important to say that not every reel that releases in Japan releases in the USA. Okay, and there are many reasons for that. The biggest reason is that when it releases at Shimano USA backs it with warranty and support if something ever breaks, right? So they're going to carry parts. They're going to make sure that if something goes wrong, they're going to replace it for you. And some reels are just more troublesome than others, whether it be warranty support or part support. Some reels just, Shimano Japan builds them and there's not a lot of parts really to fix something if it goes wrong. And it could just create a problem if the USA brought it over and tried to support it, because there just wouldn't be any support. So keep in mind that some reels are going to be Japan only. Now, we always bring them over anyways, and when we bring them over, we self-warranty them. So if you guys ever have a problem with a reel that you purchase from us that's a Japan only, we warranty it in-house. Okay, it's kind of one of the things. I mean, it's the only way I would want it done, so that's what we do. Okay, but there are going to be some that are going to trickle through the US, and we'll talk about each of those. So let's start with the Antares Monster Drive, Jeff, because I know that's a reel that you've had in your arsenal for a long time. It's a reel that I have in my arsenal. Would you say this is your favorite swim bait reel?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, so it's a big statement.
It is huge, yeah.
Okay, so I think that a lot of guys that use this reel would say the same thing. Okay, now this is the previous version, Antares Monster Drive. I wish I had a new version, but not released yet, right? So stay tuned on that. But we're going to use this as a baseline to make sure you guys understand what this is, and we're going to kind of compare specs. Now, what is it that you love about the Antares Monster Drive over some of the other reels that are on the market, whether Shimano, Daiwa, Abu, whatever?
Well, I like the size of it overall. It's like a 250 size reel. It's kind of has the body of a 200 size reel, but it feels powerful like a 300 size reel. And it fits on the rod that I have it on extremely well. It's not too big, but it doesn't feel like a toy. And you can I throw anywhere from 3 to 5 ounces on it, and it handles it great. It casts super incredibly well. The DC chip's badass, and I just really like the size and fishability of the reel so far.
What I love about the reel is it's a perfect fit on something like a blackjack or a casino or some of those rods that are really built for like 6 ounce and under stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So if, I'm not going to put an Antares Monster Drive on like a 15 ounce rod.
No.
Right? It wouldn't make any sense.
Nope.
But for 2 ounce, 4 ounce, 5 ounce, 6 ounce, right? It's that perfect blend. It's almost just a low profile bass reel, but it's substantial enough to where it kind of balances that out.
Yeah.
My experience, and I don't throw it near as much as you, so I'm kind of curious to see what you think, and then I'm going to spec it out. My experience with the Antares Monster Drive is that like closer range, accurate casting with a glide bait. That DC chip is money. So I can pretty much just nail every little cast, and once you get it dialed, it does everything you need to without creating any kind of issues backlash wise. But when I'm going to just like heave as far as I can take it or leave it. I don't feel like it does a whole lot. What is your experience with it?
Yeah, so I throw my Clash 9 on that, and a lot of the times when I throw that Clash 9, it's in super tight spots on a short cast, and the reel just does such a fantastic job. And I just think the DC chip has helped. Obviously, I can probably do the same with any reel because I've been fishing for as long as I have. but it does seem on those short casts, it just is smooth. It doesn't backlash really ever when you have it set dialed.
Yep.
And there's a few things you can do with that reel to get it set up. There's a few line setups. There's obviously the dial on the side, and just overall, I think it's a pretty badass reel.
Yeah, so if you guys aren't familiar with these systems, there's basically multiple settings inside, and the new one kind of brings that same, they call it a 4x8 monster drive setting, right? So it's essentially kind of two things. There's like a fluorocarbon setting, a braid setting. There's 4 different standard settings you can do, and then there's a micro adjust setting on the side. So once you set it to the first one, then you can micro adjust on the side to really kind of fine tune it, right? So a lot of different things you can do with this setting, or with this system, this cast control system. Now, let's check it out really quick. So this version was offered in a 7.8 to 1. It's only offered in the 1 gear ratio, right? So that was their XG, high speed. The new version is coming in 2 versions, an HG and an XG. So the XG stays at 7.8 to 1. The HG, 7.4 to 1. So not a big difference. Do you see a reason to need the 7.4 over the 7.8? Like,
I mean, personally, not really.
Not a huge difference. So I'm a little surprised that it's such a tight gear ratio difference. When I saw HG and XG, I was thinking, oh, cool, they're going to do a 7, like a low 7 and like a mid 8 or something, right? So when I saw 7.4 and 7.8, I mean, I guess, I guess you just pick which one you want, but they're going to be very, very similar, right? Weight-wise, this was 8.29 ounces. Now, do you remember when you picked up the one at Osaka?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you thought?
I thought it was pretty light.
Yeah. 8.28 ounces.
I see.
Basically the same.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah. But, dude, I thought the same thing. When I picked it up, I'm like, oh, my God. It doesn't weigh anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was just something mental. I mean, obviously, the weight doesn't, I mean, if Shimano's saying this is 8.29 and this one's 8.28, that's probably what it is. So yeah, it could be line, right, that's making a difference.
Different handle, I don't know.
But when I put it in hand, it definitely felt light. And it could have been, it's a little bit different design for sure.
Yeah.
Right? So the front element's a little bit different. So depending on how you hold your reel or where you put your hand, you may love or dislike the new design, right? It's something that we're going to have to use and actually see if it has any effect, because I know that was one thing that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Was that front kind of design piece. You were a little concerned about it.
Just doesn't look as flattering. It's very Aldebaran-esque looking.
Well, I think that was in their mind when they were building it, right? Because the biggest thing with this is, I should also say that they threw an extra bearing into the new version. So the extra bearing is actually supporting the drive gear shaft. So in theory, it's going to have a lot more power. You're going to get a lot less play. You're not going to get any rattling from the handle. If you guys are, lifting and dropping, it's just going to be a lot more support on that drive gear. So that's good, right? But the biggest thing is they have the new MGL3 spool in it. So it's a thinner, higher. The startup inertia is much quicker on that spool. And so they've retuned the DC chip to accommodate that new spool. And they're saying now that all your close range, accurate casting that you and me love with this is going to stay. But with that new spool and the new chip design, it's the farthest casting DC reel they've ever made, period. So further casting than an Antares DC non-monster drive, further than a Metanium DC, further than any DC they've ever done. This is going to be the longest casting version now. So, is that a big thing in a swim bait guy's realm? Probably not. But a lot of guys use this style reel for like deep cranking. And a lot of times deep crank, the farther you get, if you can throw 10 more feet, that might be 1 extra foot of dive depth on your crank. That could be a big deal. A lot of guys are using it for saltwater or from shore, and that little extra distance has got to give them a little bit more reach. So that's pretty cool. Price-wise, we'll see how it comes in. They're saying right now 84,000 yen. So you're probably looking at somewhere $800-ish, somewhere in there for the new version. I'm pretty excited about it. Of course, I'm going to add one, and we'll do a side-by-side comparison. So stay tuned. When we get one in hand, we'll definitely compare the two. But there's a first look at the Antares DC Monster Drive. Now, the other reel that was at the show was the new Calcutta Conquest Monster Drive. Okay, now Calcutta Conquest has been around for ages. This is, without question in my mind, probably the single most bulletproof reel maybe ever made. So I absolutely love the Calcutta Conquest. A lot of guys like the low profile. This is definitely more the trendy, more modern kind of style. But Calcutta Conquest is just, it feels so good. When this is on a rod, I just love the way it feels. I've got a little bit bigger hands, right? And I don't know if that means something, but I've always loved the way these reels have felt. Now, you've had these in your arsenal for a long time.
Yeah.
What have you historically used these reels for?
It's a soft bait reel for me.
Okay, and why?
Well, that model in your hand is a slower gear ratio than the 2018 model and the new model. And I've always liked a round reel for soft baits because I'm not having to impart any action with the rod or the reel. I just cast and I reel, and for whatever reason a round reel feels very comfortable just holding it.
Yep.
Because you got a good grip on it, and on a soft bait there's so much more hook set and wind down, and so the more you're able to hold on to the reel and hold on to, you know, everything as you're cranking and you're swinging, there's just more beef there.
Yeah.
And especially, like you said, a little bit larger hands feels great. And that's a 400 size reel, and it's the perfect 400 size reel.
Yeah.
Some 400 size reels are fucking
They're
huge.
huge,
And
right.
you're like, dude, Jesus, why is this thing so massive? But it's compact for a 400 size reel, and it's just, like you
Still
said,
has that capacity
Oh, it's
of
ridiculous.
performing like a
Yeah.
400. Now, the new Monster Drive is basically taking the same profile, slight redesign of the reel itself, right? But it's more specifically targeted towards glide bait guys,
Yeah.
right? So they're beefing up the gear ratio. It's a 7:5 to 1 gear ratio, so 40 inches of line per turn, right? So you're getting that high speed that most glide bait guys want, right? The biggest thing, though, is they're putting a new SVS MD braking system in it. Okay, so to break that down to where that makes sense, you know, Shimano's always had a centrifugal braking system, right? Where you kind of click the things up and down, the brakes, and you cause it to slow down. This new braking system is combining that centrifugal braking with a magnetic braking. So you get both. So you can fine tune the settings after you've set your brakes. You can fine tune it with the magnetic control. And it's specifically geared towards heavy baits and big baits. So each adjustment is going to be pretty substantial. So you can really fine tune to your casting stroke, right? So it's not a chip, but it's using dual systems to really allow you to adjust to exactly what you want it to do. In theory, it should be unbreakable, right? So one of the nicest things about staying in a round reel is that everything is just pretty much round. Like everything just goes one direction. When you go low profile, everything, your gears kind of have to stretch out and everything kind of has to line up. When you stay round, everything can kind of just be more compact and bigger, and it's just less things that tend to go wrong, right? So the idea that this is coming, pretty exciting. Weight-wise, they're staying heavy, right? So you've got a 300 and a 400 that are being offered. 300 is 12.7 ounces. The 400 is 12.9 ounces. So about the same as what a Calcutta Conquest is now. Just you're going to get the different gearing, the different braking system. Now, also, you saw at the show, it had a big handle on it. Okay, You've got an aftermarket handle on this here. This is the DRT handle and World Class Zero grips, right? The handle that came on that reel, we're being told is going to be the standard offered handle and grips. So in theory, it's going to come with everything you would need. Of course, you can always geek out and put your own stuff on there, right? But I'm going to put an asterisk by that because there's a little confusion. Japan is saying something different than the US is saying. By the way, this is going to be a core US offering, okay? And again, ETA is April. Right, so we'll see if that happens or doesn't happen, lefty and righty in both the 300 and 400. So pretty exciting. Price-wise, I want to say they were $649. I should have done this and had the exact price, but somewhere kind of where Conquest has always been, right? So I think it's going to be a home run. A lot of guys love this round profile. I love it. I've just never really been able to use this for a glide bait reel because it's never really been the right gear ratio and application. Now it will have it. It's just going to be a super bulletproof thing. A lot of guys too may use this as like their traveling reel, going peacock bass fishing, or you're going, you know, Arapaima, or just something just like super crazy where the fish are big and strong and you need the different gearing and the higher gear ratio. It should be a great one for you guys. Now, something we didn't show you was there is a new 2023 Metanium coming down the pipe. Now, we did put our hands on it. They're saying that all the little bugs in the current Metanium are fixed in this, but there's still a lot of gray areas to exactly when it's coming and when it's going to be produced. So stay tuned on that. Once we know more, we will show that to you guys as well. We also showed you the brand new Vanquish, which we will bring in once they are available. Again, kind of late spring is what they're talking about. I don't know that I was super thrilled with the Vanquish. This is where I've been super critical of Shimano. I'm not a huge Shimano spinning reel fan. I love their bait casting reels, right? Like a Metanium DC to me is like probably the greatest, most bulletproof reel, and the Bantam Conquest. But spinning reels, you know, I could, they don't do anything for me. And, you know, we had the Vanquish and we had the Daiwa Arity, right? They both kind of launched at the same time. They're both kind of positioned at the same place, right? The Vanquish kind of below Stella and the Arity kind of below Exists. And just, I mean, obviously I haven't fished either of them, but just curb appeal and in hand, the Arity just felt solid and the Vanquish just kind of felt kind of plasticky to me. So for that much money, I'm probably staying in Essence, which I actually love the Essence spinning reel. But you know, I need to fish it. I need to see how that drag performs to know if I'm going to love it or not. Curb appeal wise, I was meh on it. Did you have any feelings? Kind of same.
I'm not a huge Metanium fan. I mean,
what about the Vanquish though?
Vanquish, no.
Mid. Yeah, it wasn't that exciting. Yeah. So stay tuned on those. Once we get them in our hands, we'll give you guys more feedback. But the last reel I want to talk about was the Calcutta Conquest BFS. Okay, and this is one that, you know, I still have no clue why Shimano USA and Daiwa USA don't bring over high-end BFS reels. It's mind-boggling to me. This is a huge segment of the market. I super geek out on this. You know, Griff geeks out. Jeff, every time you've done it, you've loved it, right? It's a huge growing segment, and it just seems like it's completely ignored by Shimano USA and Daiwa USA. But in Japan, still a big, big push. So to see a new Calcutta Conquest BFS, new and improved, was really exciting for me. Now, the trend in BFS has to go more low profile, right? So like here's an Aldebaran BFS, right? What the Calcutta Conquest is doing is it's maintaining that kind of tradition and history of a round reel, but they're taking all the new and improved items from the Aldebaran and putting them in there. And primarily it's that MGL3 spool. Okay, so that spool is lighter. So in theory, with the new design of the Conquest BFS, you're going to be able to throw down to 1 gram stuff effortlessly, right? Now, do you want to buy a heavier round reel versus a super light low pro reel? A lot of this is going to come down to just personal preference. Now, we know after spending time in Japan BFS fishermen love their round reels, right? Like it's a huge thing to buy like old Abus and spend hundreds of dollars to take all the shit out and put cool shit in there, but it looks like an ancient reel, right? Like that's a big deal. So a lot of BFS fishing is about fashion as much as it is about function. So what this is going to come down to for you guys is it's going to depend on what rod you're putting this on. If you're putting this on a super light rod, like a little P5 Pop X stick or something like that, then you're probably going to want to stay with a low pro, super light reel like a Steez Air or an Aldebaran BFS, something like that. But if you're going to put it on a little heavier, maybe a pistol grip, there's some new custom-made great huntings coming that we played with that have like wood grips that are a little bit heavier in hand, you know, maybe something like an arm, so just got a little bit more body to it, then putting a little round BFS reel on there actually works really well. Balances it out. It kind of makes it to where it's kind of rod, reel, or all one. Plus you get that kind of fashion look to it. So I'm really excited for that reel. Stay tuned. Again, everything is kind of aimed at like an April, May release. So once we get our hands on these items, we will actually do an on the water test and bring you guys a full video of actually using them and let you know if any of the cool new features mean anything. Right? So for now, there is a first look. I hope that was enjoyable. Hope you guys had fun geeking on that. If you have questions, I'd love to hear about them. Drop your comments down below. I want to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the new releases? Do you like the look of the new handle system? Are you excited to see a monster drive come in Conquest? Drop it down below. Love to get feedback from you guys. On behalf of myself and Jeff and everybody here at the Hookup Tackle guys, thank you for the time. Thank you for the support, and we will see you again soon, hopefully very soon, on the water with the brand new Shimano Reels. So peace out, my friends. Until next time.